Good evening. Now, tonight, TV47 Weekend Edition delves into the HIV and AIDS conversation. We shall canvass the HIV Dapivirine vaginal ring, an alternative form of HIV prevention, with a medic and trial participants from Kenya and beyond our borders in Cape Town, South Africa. That conversation shall come to you shortly, but first, let's take a look at today's stories making the headlines. Tonight, families that lost their loved ones as a result of this week's protests cry for justice.
And there was no destruction. So I fail to understand why the police was killing David.
This as the Azimio brigade remains adamant on holding more protests in the coming week.
That our people will not surrender or be cowed. We further make it clear that we will pursue no engagements with Kenya Kwanza whatsoever.
Push and pull wages on after a night raid at the former president's son homestead.
They are personal weapons. So what? Are they wanting to do that because they are planning something?
Their lawyers say the raid, confirmed by Interior CS Kindiki, was illegal.
There was an alleged verbal order from the chief licensing officer that there are firearms that are possessed by the family.
And how much do you know about the HIV Dapivirine ring? We take a look at this alternative form of HIV prevention tonight. Welcome to the broadcast. My name is Grace Kanja. Of course, you can engage with us on social media at TV47 News on Twitter and at TV47 Kenya on Facebook. My handle is at Grace KE on Twitter. And our sign language interpreter tonight is Rhoda Nyamai. Welcome. Now, a family in Bondo is crying for justice after one of their kin was shot dead during the Thursday's demonstrations in Siaya County. The family wants the perpetrators behind the heinous act arrested and prosecuted, further calling on well-wishers to offer financial support to help in the burial preparations.
A somber mood has engulfed this homestead in Siaya Kodol, Gem constituency, Siaya County. Family members here are unable to control their tears of pain and sorrow following the death of 26-year-old David Otieno, who was shot dead while demonstrating with hundreds of residents on Thursday this week.
There was no chaos and there was no destruction. So I fail to understand why the police was killing David. Why was he the one that was being killed and the rest were not?
Japheth Onyango is the father to the deceased. He is submerged in deep thoughts as he tries to solve the puzzle on why the police officers could not disclose to this family where David's body was taken after the incident. He tells us they first checked at Bondo Hospital morgue only to find the body at Siaya County Referral Hospital.
Wili wale wananisumbua kidogo, ati mara huku sikia ako wapi. Sasa tulijaribu kumuona lakini hatukumuona mpaka tukatumwa Siaya.
The family maintains that Otieno was exercising his constitutional right of picketing, further calling for the arrest of the perpetrators who they claim are police officers.
Na aliuawa kama anafanya maandamano ambaye hata serikali yenyewe alikuwa anajua watu wananchi walikuwa wanaandamana jana. Sasa ningeomba tu serikali hata wabunge ambaye walikuwa wanajua hii maandamano ni maandamano ambaye imedhibitisha ya kwamba watu waandamane.
A cloud of anxiety still hovers over the roof of this clay-made home as the family stares at a bleak future following the death of their kin, who was also their breadwinner.
Sasa hiyo of course sikukuwa naye. Ndio niliwaomba kama inawezekana, kama mtu anaweza kunisaidia. Wangenisaidia.
A call has been made to local leaders to offer financial support to help repatriate the body to the village for a befitting send-off. Elizabeth Atieno, TV 47.
And the Azimio brigade has remained adamant that it will be going back to the streets on Wednesday next week, while the Odinga-led faction has reduced the days of protest from 3 to 1. The brigade has decried the arrests of their supporters, which they have termed as arbitrary.
A day after the 3 days opposition protest, the Azimio brigade has remained adamant that it won't relent in their weekly protest in the coming week and even after, until their grievances are heard.
We remain determined to right the wrongs being inflicted on our people, including state-induced high cost of living, that our people will not surrender or be cowed. Our peaceful, countrywide demonstrations will continue next Wednesday.
Speaking today at SKM Command Center, the opposition leaders have condemned what they term as unlawful arrest and detention without trial of their supporters, which include anti-government blogger Pauline Njoroge, Vihiga Senator Geoffrey Osotsi, Mathare MP Peter Imotak, and a host of Nairobi MCAs who are linked to this week's protest.
Azimio readers are being put under house arrest, constant surveillance, and persistent threat of being arrested. We demand the unconditional release of all the Azimio readers and supporters who are still being held incommunicado.
The leaders now decrying what they term as mass abductions of their supporters across the country.
As police battle our people on the streets, they have also taken over the corridors of justice in our courts.
At the same time, Maina Njenga's family through their lawyer have called upon the police and the government at large to release him and communicate his whereabouts since his arrest early this week.
We had yesterday procured orders of habeas corpus which provided or which directed whoever is holding Maina Njenga to produce him either alive, dead, or alive.
Mr. Maina, our father, and who is a leader, should be presented in court and should be released from police custody.
The opposition leader now says
their demands have not been met and still they'll be back to streets for peaceful demonstration come next Wednesday. For TV 47, I'm Gideon Iyeri.
Let's take you to West Pokot County now, where residents of Sangat village in Sigor constituency are living in fear after grasshoppers invaded the area, attacking crops in their farms and even forcing some locals to abandon their homes to find refuge in other places. The affected farmers are now calling on the government to move with speed and curb the situation. This story was produced by our West Pokot County correspondent, Andrew Juma.
A visit to this homestead in Sangata village in Sigor constituency, we met with a semblance of desertedness. Most doors are locked. This is just an example of the many villages here which are facing a grasshopper invasion. So bad is the situation that residents are now saying the mass exodus has not only affected their children's learning, but also their way of life, as they are forced to take their animals at the farthest point of grazing in search of water and pasture.
So tungeomba ya kwamba kama kuna tu vile mnaweza tusaidia, inaweza tusaidia pia, sababu inaendelea kukula mimea ya shamba na hiyo ndo tunategemea.
Hakuna vile tunakaa sahi, hasa kwa mabono. Tukikaa chini inatuangukia kitu yake, inatuangukia sasa, imetuangaisha sana.
The residents who say they would otherwise eat the grasshoppers now say they have never seen such a breed, fearing for their health. The situation forcing the county government of West Pokot through the Agriculture and Livestock Department to deploy officers and specialists to try and curb the situation.
Tuko na madawa ya kutosha ya kushughulikia hii hali, na pia tuko na control teams ambao tumeweka in place kuhakikisha kwamba watakuwa wanashughulikia hii kazi. Sisi ni kusema kwamba wakazi wa hapa washirikiane nazi kuhakikisha kwamba tumefanya hiyo kazi vizuri na kwa utaratibu.
West Pokot Agriculture and Livestock CEC Alfred Longronyang was accompanied by his chief officer, urged locals that the county government of West Pokot is moving with speed to restore calm in the area, while urging them to report any suspicious situation in the area.
Waweze kupeana habari haraka iwezekanavyo, ifikie sisi kwa idara. Tumejiandaa vizuri kwa kuzuia hao wanyama kuendelea kuharibu mimea ya wakulima na hata misitu yetu. So tumejiandaa, wajisikie sisi kama idara tuko sawa.
Ile ningependa kuambia wakulima na sio hapa peke yao ni kwamba kama idara tumejipanga, tuko na dawa. Iwapo kutakuwa na hawa wadudu ama chochote itatokea kwa mashamba yetu, waweze kutupea ujumbe mapema.
Thomas Wasika, coordinator at Emergency Locust Response Project, who led the team to spray and offer insecticides to locals, say the outbreak could be due to climate change, promising that they are ready to curb the situation, urging locals to take precautions before applying the insecticides to avoid causing unnecessary health problems.
Na nataka kusema ya mwisho kwamba hii ni wadudu wa kawaida ambao wako pande hii, lakini wamekuwa wengi kwa sababu ya climate change.
Now, tonight, new details on retired President Uhuru Kenyatta's weapons saga have emerged, with detectives giving details on the number of firearms the chief licensing officer, Yakub Rashid, once returned on allegations of being used in Azimio demonstrations. This after Interior Cabinet Secretary Professor Kithure Kindiki said 23 firearms were recovered in the Karen area suspected to have been used in Azimio demonstrations. According to CS Kindiki, the government is currently holding a prime suspect who was in possession of crude weapons, cocaine, and 42 million shillings to be distributed across 11 counties. Apollo Kamau reports.
Despite his televised protest on Friday, details of the number of guns the fourth President Uhuru Kenyatta's family currently holds have been laid bare by DCI detectives who had been sent with a verbal order to search the home of Kenyatta's firstborn son Jomo, where, among 3 other homesteads, 23 firearms suspected to have been used in Azimio demos were found. Uhuru's legal team, however, criticized the verbal order that came with the search.
There are firearms that are possessed by the family, that they needed them surrendered. The request we made is simple. Because the order was verbal, we are happy to meet the chief licensing officer on Monday morning at 9, since the offices are closed tomorrow, to be able to understand the request.
According to detectives, the Kenyatta family's sons and his nephew and former PA Jomo Geshaga holds a total of 28 firearms, out of which Jomo, the firstborn son, owns 3 firearms, Muhoho, his second son, 12, among them a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol. Jomo Geshaga, Kenyatta's former personal assistant, 2 firearms, all which, according to detectives, need to be returned to the Central Firearms Unit.
They are personal weapons. So what? Are they wanting to do that because they are planning something? And if they are planning something, yeah, my only plea, don't plan against my mother, don't plan against my children, plan for me.
They organize these firearms, they take them out, the police processes the firearms.
The raid at Jomo's home was part of a wider operation, according to Interior CS Professor Kithure Kindiki, that saw the government arrest an unnamed prime suspect on Wednesday this week in possession of 42 million shillings to be distributed to 11 counties to finance demonstrations in Nairobi, Central and Rift Valley regions.
Simuliona wengine jana wakilalamika ati watoto wao wanasumbuliwa, na wewe umeweka bunduki 20 kwa nyumba. Ni vita gani unapigana na bunduki 20 kwa nyumba yako? Unalia eti mama yako anasumbuliwa. Kwani sisi hatuna mama zetu?
Also seized were 14 machetes, 24 swords, 46 rungus, and over 300 sachets of assorted narcotic drugs, among them cocaine and cannabis sativa. According to Kindiki, the law allows security agencies under the Firearms Act to inspect premises where firearms are kept, to require civilian firearm holders to produce them for inspection and ballistic examination, where it is reasonably suspected that such firearms or ammunition may have been used or expended outside the law. The government has vowed to proceed with a crackdown on misuse of civilian firearms. Apul Kamau, TV47.
Right, and we now take our fast break here on TV47 Weekend Edition. Do stay with us. Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, President William Ruto has hit out at Azimio leaders for planning anti-government protests. Speaking in Vihiga and Kisii, Ruto called out the opposition leaders over what he termed as dishonesty in the weekly protests. The president insisted that Kenya is a democratic and peaceful country and that each Kenyan wants the opportunity to do their business and other things that will change their lives.
Tusikubali siasa ya kupiganishwa. Tusikubali siasa ya fujo na kupigana na kuharibu mali na kuharibu biashara. Mimi nawauliza tuungane, siasa imekwisha. Mimi nataka pia niwaulize viongozi wote wa taifa letu la Kenya. All of us who are leaders, we must be mindful about our country. We can compete, but we cannot sabotage Kenya. Kenya is greater and Kenya is our motherland. All of us. irrespective of our different viewpoints or political parties or political persuasions. We must never engage in activities that destroy property, that destroy life, that destroy business in Kenya. Because if we sabotage our economy, we have no other country to call home.
Sisi kama Wakisii tulikataa tukasema hatuwezi weka sufuria kwa kichwa. Ile kazi ambayo tutafanya ni kuenda shambani, tupande mahindi, tupande maragwe ili tuweze kulisha Jamhuri ya Kenya.
I want to confirm to you, Your Excellency, that under your leadership, those of us in Kenya Kwanza, in line with the call by our religious leaders, ya kuwa turudi kwa bipartisan talks with a single agenda of the reconstitution of IEBC. That I want to agree with our religious leaders.
Right now, stigma and discrimination of people living with HIV and AIDS still continues to persist, and despite sensitization, the latest statistics from KDHS indicate that 43% of people living with HIV and AIDS experience stigma. Sheila Chelangat reports on the experiences of some people living with the disease and how they have faced stigma and their road to overcoming.
Just what would it feel like being unfairly treated because of your health status? And how does one's world change after going public with their status?
I marked the first book. The second book, the boy was crying with the book. So I didn't know. I knew he has not completed. And the boy started crying and saying, Mama aliniambia nisikupatie kitabu yangu utaniambukiza ukimwi.
This is the story of Anne Rono, a teacher. She learned of her status in 2004 after her husband passed away. A bitter pill for her to swallow. She lived in denial, unable to come to terms with it.
After 1 year is when I went back for testing, because now I could be attacked by homa, malaria, now rashes. I was seeing some signs. So I said, I better go back and check.
The next big hurdle for her was going public with her status, and she says she contemplated suicide at one point.
Also, the same teacher said we need to mark the chairs. Everybody to sit on his or her own chair. I remember I sat on chair number 10. Until I left that school.
According to the report released by the Kenya Demographic and Health Survey, people living with HIV have either had someone disclosing their status without consent, or verbally assaulted and threatened because of their status, or have even had people talk badly about them. Further statistics indicate that 43% of people living with HIV experience stigma on a day-to-day. What baffles most is that 10% of women and 8% of men have experienced stigma in a healthcare setting.
I was in the hospital last week taking my drugs. It was my clinic time. So when people see me, they are asking, and what are you doing here and you are there last week? So people expect me, because I'm HIV positive, I'm today in hospital collecting my drugs. I should not be sick to come back for any other service.
Alfin Oma, also a community worker, says going public with her status has not been easy for her.
Ya kwanza yenye nilienda open, wakati nilienda open ilikuwa tu sawa tu. Wacha nirudi sasa nyumbani, nikae chini sasa nifikirie. Sasa ndio nina digest pole pole. Kwa nini nilienda open? Watu pia wakaniona wanasema huyu alisema ako positive. Huyu tumpee tu siku 3 ama 3 months.
Not only do they reckon stigma on them, but to their close family members as well.
He told my child to draw a picture of a person living with HIV. He singled out my girl. So my girl was, why should you tell me that I draw? But he was saying, I've said you draw the picture of a person living with HIV. Not even living with HIV, a person with AIDS.
Watoto wangu wakienda kucheza na wale wengine au parents wanafukuza, wanaambia ende mchezeni kwenu kwa sababu mtaambukiza. Mama yenu wako na virusi, hata nyinyi pengine mko na virusi. Hatutaki mcheze na watoto wetu.
And even as sensitization programs continue to be done, Anne says it perhaps is not enough. The KDHS 2022 report indicated that 59% of women and 61% of men have accurate knowledge on HIV prevention.
We assume a lot that people know about HIV, but in real sense, there are people who don't even understand the basics of HIV. They don't know how HIV is transmitted. You remember those messages, Kitambo, the messages, all the time messages about HIV. We still need to go back to such messages, anti-stigma messages.
It is clear that more still needs to be done in sensitization to dispel the stigma that still exists around HIV and AIDS. For TV47, I'm Sheila Chelangat.
Right, and that is the story that forms the basis of our discussion tonight. Now remember, we promised to bring you reports from Kenya, Africa and beyond the continent, right? So we were not pulling your leg. Tonight, we take you live to Cape Town, South Africa for a conversation with 28-year-old Akona Gahisa, a dapivirine vaginal ring participant. Listen in. Thank you so much, Akona, for joining us for this conversation. Let's get right into it, Akona. How did it feel being part of these trials as a woman?
Thank you, Grace. Being part of the dapivirine ring felt so good because I had to be part of the change and be part of the game changer to the society and all humanhood.
Right, let's talk about this ring and allow me to be a bit intrusive because it was inside you, Akona, and I want to know the reaction of your partner when he found out that you had this ring on the inside of you.
When he found out, he suddenly felt like he was feeling it. He started making all those nasty comments about how he felt the ring inside me.
But before that, he wasn't feeling it?
No.
So after
before he knew he was not feeling anything, after I told him, that's when he suddenly felt the ring.
And what did he ask you to do after that?
He asked me to take it off, of which I couldn't, because for my own safety and my own personal goal, I couldn't.
Right. How about you yourself, Akona, having it on the inside of you? A lot of people are curious. They're wondering how it feels for you personally. Do you actually feel anything? Is it comfortable? Is it uncomfortable?
When you start putting it on, it feels a bit uncomfortable because, like, it's not something you're used to it. But when the time goes by, a week after, it starts getting into you, and then and then you don't feel it for a long run. Only when you have to take it on, that's when you remember that you have something inside of you.
Right. Now, most people would fear being part of a trial. I mean, this is a new thing. Nobody has done it before. How was it like for you when you started?
For me, when I started, it felt like I was not sure about it. I didn't know anything about it. I wanted to know, and I wanted to be part of a big change that comes with it. So I was eager to learn, very committed. So yeah, that's very uncomfortable when you start putting it on. Yeah.
Right, Akona, now South Africa last year approved this ring for use in the country. What was your reaction having been part of the trials?
I was very, very happy. But at the very same time, it was quite sad because the government didn't want to sign on it. So ever since then, I haven't heard anything from them or the IPM family. So I'm still quite happy on the other side, but quite sad on the other one.
Right. Let's get your parting shot and your message to other women.
To other women, I'd suggest they use the ring. It's much safer and very efficient to use because you don't have to go to queues in the clinic, go to queues in the pharmacies. All you have to do is put it on. Once you have inserted it on, it's going to be on you for like a month or 3. So it's very much safe to use. Yeah.
Right. Thank you so much, Akona, all the way live from Cape Town in South Africa. Thank you. That's right, live all the way from Cape Town, South Africa. Tell me, who else does that? It's only we here at TV47 Weekend Edition. Stay with us. We're taking another short break. When we come back, we continue with that conversation. This time round, we come back home in Kenya with a trial participant from here and a medic in charge of this whole HIV topic, and particularly the dapivirine vaginal ring. Stay with us.
The Mwai Kibaki Convention Center, the premier events venue. Our state-of-the-art facility